Okay, good morning, aloha. I believe that you would like me to go ahead and begin then, Raj, is that correct? Okay, well, we are streaming live. I'm not hearing anything from Raj. He's managing the meeting. I'm hoping that I will be able to screen share with you.
Yes, you can start. Hi, Dr. Corey.
Oh, hello.
I tried to join you, but where I am, it's not always possible to have the connection. So this is why if I'm not here or I have to run to another meeting because they are waiting for me. So I'm doing my best just to join you because okay.
Yeah, I understand. I know you're very in demand and it's hard for you to be present. And I felt really sad missing last week. So my family surprised me last minute with a little Mother's Day surprise and a little trip. And so I apologize for not making it last week. But I did, and I do understand, Queen Nadia, if you need to go, I'm hoping that you'll watch this later because you had been asking so much about Hawaiian medicine and asking me questions about Hawaiian medicine that I wanted to put together a special class.
Asking me about that and Chinese, Hawaiian, Arabic and all that, So this is why, because you are Hawaiian, you can bring a lot of things to the people and it's just amazing.
Well, let's start a little bit of this. So I did, okay, so I want to bring us back to where we are right now. So when I started this coursework, I had kind of tried to structure this curriculum in a very way to create a foundation and then build from there. And then, the foundation of all forms of medicine really stem from theory and philosophy and idea about the nature of reality. And then all things stem from that. So the first class, I really started talking about really Western scientific theory and our idea of materialism, and that is what our medicine in the West has stemmed from. And then I touched a little bit on Taoism and that idea that there is an energetic force or the Tao that's permeating all things. And this is really very prevalent in Chinese medicine. Specifically, Tao comes from Taoism, which is a Chinese philosophy. And so also understanding when I bring a lot of these things in, current modern day Hawaii, or Hawaii is the proper way to pronounce actually, because W is pronounced V in the Hawaiian language, is a sort of melting pot with a heavy Asian influence. So much Chinese, much Buddhism, much Japanese is found in Hawaii. So modern Hawaiian culture also has aspects of these thoughts and these theories. But what I want to take you into today is a little bit more of traditional Native practices. So I'm going to touch a little bit on Native American because it's very similar, Native Hawaiian, and even if we look at Native say tribal cultures in Europe or Asia, it's interesting because if we look globally, things evolve in similar patterns. So when we talk about our very ancient traditions, we're thinking about Native practitioners, Native herbalists and medicine practitioners. And the philosophy that is very prevalent in Native cultures is animism, which is different from Taoism, in that Taoism speaks about an energetic force or principle that permeates all things, and it's sort of a unified force. And animism is slightly different in that there are individual souls that reside in all things, and not just living and non-living, so that the rocks have spirits. The earth itself, of course, has spirit. Trees have spirits, animals have spirits, and there's no hierarchical structure in that all spirits are considered to be on an equal level. So there's this respect for this interconnectedness of all things in most Native cultures. And so when you're speaking of shamanic practices, or in Hawaii that would be the kahuna, when you're speaking of the priests and these shamanic practices, you're talking about understanding the spirit nature of the world as well. So you can't really separate them out. So when I speak as Hawaiian. I was Hanai'd as Hawaiian. My mother grew up in the islands, and she was a Tahitian dancer, and her sister was Pi'ilani, or her Hanai sister. So Hanai means adopted, but her halau sister, which means her dancing sister, was Pi'ilani. And Pi'ilani is an ali'i name. Ali'i means royalty or nobility. So she had to ask permission to give that name to her daughter. So she gave me that name as my Hawaiian name when I was little. And Pi'ilani means ascending to the heavens. So it's a very sacred name. My last name was given to me by my kumu, my teacher, who was a descendant of Papa Henry Awai. And that last name is Kiapu'iwa. And I will share my experience and how I ended up getting that name from him. So briefly going into Native culture and animism. So when we're talking about plants and we're talking about harvesting plants, we're talking about sacred practices, because there's this interconnectedness of all things, there's a reverence and a respect and a prayer system where permission is asked for collecting herbs, for taking the lives of animals, or any of these practices that we see. There is a sacred reverence about it. And so there are expected orders, I guess, order of operations, right, in a sense. So if you're going to take, like in Native culture, if you're going to harvest a plant, you first ask, you pray, you ask permission from the plant, and the plant you will tune into the plant, and the plant will give you that information on an energetic way, where almost it's a telepathic communication, where you come into this state of meditation, and the plant will allow you to either pick or not pick. If you're listening, the plant will tell you to not pick certain areas of the plant, or not pick at all, or help yourself. And then you usually, generally in Native American tradition, you leave a little bit of tobacco. Tobacco is very sacred to Native American people. And why I start with Native American is because I was also adopted by a Navajo medicine woman when I was about 21. My mother passed, and I didn't have a place to live. I was kind of here and there, in my car a little bit, and this amazing medicine woman took me into her home. And I had been at university at that time and ended up shifting everything because I could no longer be in university. So I became her apprentice, and I studied and learned with her. One of my teachers was from the School of Self-Heal, and he also taught me a lot of Native American traditions. So we would wildcraft herbs and wild harvest herbs, which means that we would go on, medicine walks. And whenever you say plant medicine, this is an interesting thing, and I want to put this out there. There is this idea that it's always this hallucinogenic medicine, and I really want to kind of dissolve that concept. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of plants that people use for medicine that are non-hallucinogenic in nature. So for whatever reason, when I say that I'm a plant medicine specialist or an herbal doctor or those things, in the West especially, people assume that you're talking about marijuana or psychotropic herbs, psychedelic herbs, mushrooms, and there's medicinal purposes, but I personally have never partaken of any hallucinogens. I have had visions since I was a little girl, and so I've never touched it because I already see things, so I just don't touch those things. So I'm not going to say that there's not medicinal properties, but I do want to dispel this idea that when we talk about plant medicine, we are always talking about hallucinogens or something to get people high. It seems like people want to escape their reality. Some people take hallucinogenic herbs, I think, to try to discover other realities, perhaps. but it seems as though it's somewhat abused in the West, and probably globally, because a lot of people are trying to escape their three-dimensional reality, sadly. And so they like to check out a little bit. But it's not just humans. I know that animals eat fermented fruits and different things to escape maybe their reality too. So I'm not going to get into that too much. But when we start shifting into Native practices, we need to understand this concept of animism and tradition and legend. And so so many traditions are passed down orally. So written language didn't really come into play until ancient Sumeria. So prior to written language, all information was passed down through oral traditions. And in a lot of Native cultures, that means through singing, through song, through dance, and interwoven in these cultural traditions is the history and is the information. Now, I don't want to go too deep into either Native American. I mean, there's so many tribes, so I can't speak to all of that. I know what I have been exposed to, and as well with Hawaiian tradition, I don't want to dishonor Hawaiian culture by speaking as though I'm an expert on the history and tradition. I have my knowledge in Hawaiian plant medicine or Hawaiian plant medicine. I did study with the kahuna. I was hana'd. I studied la'au apa'au, which is Hawaiian plant medicine, and I studied lomi lomi, which is Hawaiian massage. Most traditional cultures do have a form of massage or touching with hands. So that would also be energetic healing, hand healing, putting bones in place, softening muscles, and then getting into the herbs and medicines. And then we get even beyond that, where some practices we have needling, like in acupuncture, and even in some Ayurvedic practices, there's needling. Yeah, and so I'm not going to go down into Ayurveda too much. I wanted to share with you a lelo, which is type of, let's see, I have a little bit of my notes written here because I have a lot of information. Okay, so let's just briefly go into the concept of plant medicine as being reserved to a locale. I want to start with that, but one interesting thing to note is that generally nature provides remedy for typical ailments in a particular location. So for example, in cold, like northern wet climates, you have a lot of like pine, right? A lot of pine and fir, juniper, and that is beneficial, very beneficial for lung, right? So typical illnesses and ailments that you'll see in northern cold climates are related to lung and mucus, heavy, thick, cold, damp mucus. Now, fir and pine are warming and stimulating and healing for lung. So that particular ailment that is very common in that area, in that region, the cure is generally very close by, which makes sense because if we think about animism, if we think about spirit, if we think about all of these plants and animals, they all are also prone to these particular ailments. So even the animals in the area may succumb to those particular imbalances or ailments. So now we're going to move over into the tropics, which is Hawaiian medicine. And so I'm going to give you just a brief overview, speak to you about a couple of plants that are highly used in medicine. And I'll tell you a couple of my personal stories if we have time. So one of the very sacred plants in Hawaiian culture is niu, which is coconut. Coconut is actually considered to be a canoe plant, which was not actually brought over on the canoes, which most probably floated over from Africa. And coconut is very predominant all over the Hawaiian Islands. And it's a sacred plant. It was planted, like, if you're walking on the island and you're looking around and you see coconut groves or plots of where there's many, many coconut trees, generally that was a home of the ali'i, or the royal families. There is a system of kapu in Hawaiian culture, which is that certain plants, certain areas and locations were reserved for the noble class, or the ali'i. So coconut and banana were two of the very sacred plants. But I want to talk about coconut oil and the interesting crossover. If we talk about coconut oil from a Vedic or Ayurvedic perspective, it's very cooling. So it's something that you would use for pitta, which is fire. So it calms heat. So it grows in the tropics, and conditions and illnesses sometimes that happen in the tropics are the result of this continual warm, wet heat. So fungal infections and bacterial infections are very prevalent in the tropics. Now, coconut oil itself is cooling in nature, but it also does target fungus and bacteria and bacterial infections. So it's a wonderful base oil. You use it topically for lomi lomi. If I was going to be doing lomi lomi, which is Hawaiian massage, which means to mix, lomi lomi, to mix. I've heard it also translated as to soften, although I learned that the word meaning was to mix. So lomi lomi is the Hawaiian massage. There's many forms of lomi lomi. Usually it comes down from a particular family line. The form of lomi that I studied was Auntie Margaret's lomi. She used to teach in Kealakekua. So when you have herbs, you're trying to, if you're going to apply them topically, you do want a base. So niu, or coconut, would be the base. Kukui nut is also a sacred plant medicine oil that came over in the canoe. Kukui nut is the candle nut, or candle nut. Yeah, it was used. The oil was used for candles for light by the ancient Hawaiians. It's also in the poke, which is the raw fish, and then they will use the kukui nut. But it is not found very often outside of the Hawaiian Islands. So some people will substitute macadamia nuts. Macadamia nuts were brought later as a cash crop that are grown in the Hawaiian Islands that are originally from Australia. So we have niu, the coconut. We have kukui nut oil, and then we have kaimani, or tamanu, which is also, kaimani is the Hawaiian word. Tamanu, it's originally from Africa. I believe it was a canoe plant as well, and it grows down along the coast. And again, it's really good topically for treating sun damage on skin, pigmentation on skin, topical funguses, topical bacterial infections. So bacterial infections can be really difficult and horrible in the tropics. And a lot of bacteria have learned to mutate and become antibiotic resistant, antibiotic resistant, because bacteria outsmart the antibiotics, because antibiotics are very targeted, right? Antibiotics are very dangerous for the body. And that's not to say that there are not occasions where they may be necessary. However, antibiotics will wipe out all of the good bacteria as well. And so this was part of the reason I wanted to get into concept and idea about how we perceive our physicality, how we perceive our biology, plays on the medicines that we use. And because we have this concept of a bad bacteria that will kill us, and we need to kill the bacteria, and we have this concept of this war going on, right? And that we almost, like, antibiotics could be compared to like a nuclear bomb. Like, you just dropped a nuclear bomb on your system for a little infection on your finger. And it wipes out this good base of these beneficial flora that we have in our gut. And of something like 70%, some have said 70%, and I have followed up with a lot of journal research, empirical journal data research to verify this, because when you are teaching natural medicine, natural healing, you do have to defend yourself quite frequently against the current paradigm, which is this mechanistic idea and this concept that allopathic or Western medicine is the only form of medicine, and that concept is the only one that's true. So in my research on gut health, understanding flora and why certain microbes that we take and ingest internally actually stimulates the immune system, because it triggers B and T cell production when we take in these other microbes, and then they become more, well, they're turned on to that particular strain, so they recognize any strain like that, but it also just increases the amount of immune cells that you have in your system. I don't have the journal in front of me, so I can't get into the exact mechanics of it, but it's something that I could post. Maybe I could post in our group. It was fascinating to me. So you hear a lot about taking different microbes, you know, bifidus, acidophilus, for your stomach. Cultured foods stimulate this internal mechanism that produce more immune cells. One of the things that is not understood about the immune system that is starting to come into light in Western thinking minds is this idea of immune system memory, right? So when we have been attacked by something in our past, we have a map. Our body almost creates a blueprint or a map of what we've been infected with before, and these immune cells recognize that if we are ever attacked again at a later date, and start to produce these leukocytes or white blood cells that will destroy these invaders. So I wanted to sort of give you that little foundation there, a little bit of understanding, and I don't want to go too much into that. And how did I get on the topic of bacteria? Oh, antibiotics, antifungal, antibacterial. Herbs, when we talk about herbs, and this is why I've talked about modern herbalism, or what pharma and pharmaceutical companies are trying to do with herbs, is extract concentrates of active ingredients. And I was trying to express that that is not herbalism, that is actually pharma or pharmaceutical medicine. So it's very different. And again, bringing us back around to this concept and idea of this animism and this sacredness of all living things, and all living things having, and non-living, because the rocks and the dirt and all of these things also have their spirit, if we're talking about animism. That the life of that and the life force of that is also a factor that we consider when we talk about our healing, which is where the prayer comes in, and where the sacred reverence for these things comes in. So it is not just a chemical component, although science can break it down and verify and justify the action and the what science would deem to be the reason for the plant medicine working. But any true herbalist or natural practitioner will tell you that it goes way, way beyond that. And that is where we come into this sacredness of everything. So I wanted to speak to you briefly about coconut. So we talked about niu or coconut, kaimani, which these kaimani trees, the nuts hang down. They look very similar to kukui nut, and kukui nut, which is the candle nut. These are all really good base oils that you would find in Hawaiian. The fish in the tropics tend to be dry. They're not very oily fish. Some of the reef fish are a little bit oily, but not so much. So, you know, Hawaiians they're not using fish oils, but they do use the coconut oil, the kukui nut oil, and the kamani oil traditionally. And the kamani oil is not really taken orally, but topically it's very medicinal. I have some pictures I will try to show you as I go into this a little bit. The two main herbs I wanted to talk about today were olena, which is turmeric. I brought that up briefly last time. And noni, which I brought up as well. Now, Papa Henry Awai, who I studied his La'au tradition, was not a proponent of using olena. However, olena was widely used in Tahiti and Polynesia. And again, when we're talking about olena and we're talking about noni, we're talking about canoe plants, meaning that they were not endemic species to the Hawaiian Islands. However, they've been there for so long, it's difficult to almost know what was brought over, what is considered to be endemic. A lot of the plants that you find on the island had just, you know, floated over from other places. So Hawaii is a volcanic island. All of the Hawaiian island chains are Hawaiian islands in the chain are volcanic in nature. So they did not like separate from the larger continent. So they did not have those plants there. So many of the plants floated over and flew, right? Birds flying over, they drop seeds, and then that's how plants come. So there's a hot spot in the ocean floor that has lava that comes out of it, right? An underwater volcano. So these islands were created by this lava. So this volcano, the lava came, and so there are mountains that go down to the ocean floor, and then you have the drift, and so the islands drift, the plates. Trying to think about the plate movement, and as they shift this way, the islands drift, and then new islands are being formed. So I lived on the big island of Hawaii on Kilauea, which is the most active volcano on the planet, and I was about 12 miles from the crater. And I did live through a volcanic eruption, which was quite intense. And they say that Pele, who is the goddess of the volcano, that she's gentle for a volcano. And so I guess that's true. They're shield volcanoes. They're shield volcanoes. Oh, I'm not gonna, don't quote me on that all of a sudden. I'll have to get back to you on that because I'm trying to jar my memory. However, the way that the lava flows is a little bit more gentle and a little bit more predictable. It flows in underground chambers or lava tubes, right? So there's this underground lava tube highway. Hawaii is made up of 5 volcanoes. So the youngest being Kilauea, and just off the coast there is a new island that's forming from that hot spot on the ocean floor. So the 5 volcanoes are Kilauea, Mauna Loa, Mauna Kea, Kohala, Hualalai, Kohala, Mauna Kea, Mauna Loa, Kilauea. Yeah. So I lived on Kilauea, and it's a very magical place. There are some species of plant that only grow there. That is the only place in the world. They're endemic species, and they only grow at the top of that volcano. So one of those, or on that volcano, I think that's the only place the Ohelo berries grow right there. Those are sacred to the goddess Pele. They are in the blueberry family, so they're very rich in vitamin C, which was really important for ancient Hawaiian people because there's not a lot of citrus growing there naturally. But the Ohelo berries were very, very rich in vitamin C, or are very rich in vitamin C. The nene geese, which is the Hawaiian state bird, which is a goose, related to the Canadian goose. They think maybe it flew over, and then over time, it became much smaller. So it looks like a Canadian goose, but it's much smaller. They eat these berries. You're not supposed to really pick them, but you can get ohelo berry jam. Some people grow them. They usually grow at the base of the ohia lehua tree. I lived in the ohia forest. I lived in the Ola'a forest, which is an ancient rainforest, and I had 8 acres of ancient rainforest, and I was growing medicine and trying to create a healing sanctuary there, and it was quite challenging. And then when the volcano erupted, it was time for me to go. It was a lot of things that happened there. So I started talking to you a little bit about the ohelo berries. The olena is the turmeric. So briefly, I touched on turmeric last week. I'm going to see if I can pull up a picture here for you. Please bear with me. I am not super great at picking these up for me here. Okay, so I want to screen share here. I'm going to see if I can get this for you here. Turmeric here. Is this? So you guys can see this, yes? I can't see it. There we go. Can you see the turmeric? No. Raj, do you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Are you seeing the turmeric? Because I'm not seeing it. My screen sharing is
Turmeric image. No, it's not coming as a big picture, but it's coming like a small thumbnail. Like a folder.
Small thumbnail. I don't see anything now. I just kind of messed up my whole.
Just click on it. Just click on it, please.
I don't even see it though. That is the issue here. Let's see.
Okay,
there we go.
Enter,
can you see this now? You can see this, yes?
No, it's just like a thumbnail only. You just need to double click on it. It will open up.
How's that better? I double clicked. Can you see it? Raj?
No, still not opening up.
Still not. It's open for me.
I
don't understand. Okay. Okay. How do we close this out then? Since I don't know. This whole thing is funny. I'm sorry, guys. I apologize. I had practiced with this so that this wouldn't happen, but apparently it's not working well for me.
No, Dr. Koi, it's not opening up. No.
Okay. What can you see? Can you see me? Can you see all my notes? Can you just see my face?
Yes, you are visible. Along with that, the screen is open on which your computer, desktop, the downloads, all things are there. With a thumbnail.
Oh, we don't want that. I'm going to stop that share then. Okay. Oh, I apologize. I see. So just close this. This is frustrating to me. Okay, I will try to share these at the end then, briefly, because I know we're running out of time and I have a meeting right after this. So what I will try to do is I will try to wrap up here give you a little bit of the information and then see if I can open my files so that I can share the images with you guys, if that works. And I will practice maybe screen share with somebody else on a Zoom meeting here, because I had a hard time with this last time I taught as well. So turmeric. I also have an article on my website about turmeric. So my website is just korigala.com, KORIGAILA.com. If anyone's interested, I do have some articles there. I do feel that I need to make some edits on some of them. However, the article on turmeric, which is called Olena in Hawaiian language, is up there. And at the bottom of that, I do have a recipe that I made for acne, if you have any acne on, skin. So it's a facial mask remedy. So that's there if you're interested. And again, that's Kori, K-O-R-I, GAILA.com. I also have my YouTube, Kori Gala Wellness, and there are some health shows there.
Can you please write down in the chat for every people they can note down?
Yes, I do have, because there is herbal medicine and information there as well. Try to find the chat here. I usually do this from my phone. Where's my chat down here? Okay, yes, here you go. I'll put this in here for you guys. But do feel free to look into that if you want to find more information about turmeric, Olena. And again, I did notice as I was reading it today that I need to make a couple edits. There's a couple typos in there. I sent that to my web designer and I need to do that. And then this is the name of my YouTube, but I did do a show called Let's Talk About Health. And on that, there is one exactly about fermented foods and the immune system, which I touched on briefly. So that's one of the things that people do with the noni fruit. They ferment it, and the fermented noni is even more potent. So again, I was saying that Papa Henry Abai did not believe in the noni fruit. Noni is a very, very pungent and strong blood cleaner, antioxidant, also an adaptogen. Again, I'm going to try to pull up these pictures, and if I can't get these pictures up today, I will figure out how to share them next week with you. Noni is about this big fruit. It comes green, and then it turns pale, and then it gets kind of mushy and falls to the ground. And it has a very pungent, strong smell, almost like a Limburger cheese or a rotted cheese. I love it. Some people can't stand it. It's very powerful. It's a very strong cleaner for the stomach. Some people like to take it as a daily tonic, although other La'au practitioners, such as Papa Henry, say that it's too strong. So it has been used by traditional practitioners for cancer and to heal very deep ailments. Some people like to take it as a daily tonic. And again, that's controversial. Some people don't agree with it. Turmeric, however, Olena, is a very potent and wonderful daily tonic. It's very anti-inflammatory. In Ayurvedic medicine, it's tridoshic, meaning it works for all body types. So it's a universal herb. It's just a very good blood cleaner, although it will thin the blood. So if you're on blood thinners, if you're taking lots of aspirin and things like that, it's contraindicated for use. But for most people, turmeric is very beneficial. In medicine blends, they generally add a little bit of black pepper to it to help it assimilate into the bloodstream more quickly. And I think I have one of my TV shows on Let's Talk About Health where I go into the actual details of turmeric as anti-inflammatory medication. However, one of the studies I read said that it was actually more effective than ibuprofen for inflammation. And as more research is coming out, although again, we talk about traditional native practices, they've always kind of known these things, but science has to come back and prove it to make it valid. So, you know, I accept what it is. I don't agree with it, but it is what it is. Inflammation is now they're finding a big component in disease. So managing inflammation is a very important aspect of healing and maintaining good health. One of the things that happens with women when they go through menopause is with the drop in estrogen levels. Estrogen is actually a natural anti-inflammatory. So as hormones change, there's more inflammation in the body. Also, you know, when women menstruate, their estrogen levels drop, inflammation goes up, there's more water in the body. So turmeric is this wonderful blood cleaner, anti-inflammatory. It's used for skin health. It's used for acne, for inflammation, and also very antibacterial, antifungal. So one of the uses in Hawaii is, you know, I was a big wave surfer for a lot of years. Love to surf. Again, I was saying there's a lot of staph and strep in the water, in the coral. You know, it does never get cold. It never gets cold in the tropics, so that a lot of these bacteria can just flourish there. So we really need to build up our resistance to these things through exposure, through managing our own system and keeping our own system balanced. Again, salt, so you have the salt water. Salt is an amazing antibacterial, antifungal treatment, right? So most ancient cultures, salt was considered to be very important, very important, and traded not just for its taste properties for food, for seasoning, but also because it would, you know, preserve meat, preserve vegetables, but also very antifungal, antibacterial. So we have the salt water. However, some of these bacteria live in the water and then they get into the sinus cavities, into the ears. And so staph and strep, they will colonize in the ears, nose, and throat. So I see the question there, human consumption. Please see my video in YouTube on pain management. They do make capsules of turmeric. Usually, I don't know. I could go grab mine off the shelf. Turmeric powder, you know, is just a herb. I would say you take the root, you know, you can grate it up, dry it, powder it. You can use a teaspoon. I will go into one of the classes I want to teach. I want to teach a rayasana, which we can make. And I make a turmeric ginger rayasana for daily use tonic. So I don't want to get into proper dosages. I don't want to tell you what is proper. Everybody's different, and so that's why I don't want to go into that. But generally speaking, turmeric is safe for consumption. It's a food. That's why herbs are so safe, because they're foods. Some herbs are more potent, like the noni, so you don't want to consume too much. But turmeric is found in curries. It's found in so many foods, right? It's very safe. But if you want specifics, I would recommend more do research it online. Please refer to my show. And again, capsules that you find will have recommended daily dosages for use, but I'm not going to get into recommending or prescribing dosages for people, because that's more specific for treatment, and so I can't do that on this platform. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question, Emmanuel. I do have the information out there. The information is out there. And do see my video, please, in my YouTube from my TV show. You can also email me with more specific questions. I will put my email down here as well. So there we are. We do have, you know, liability and all of these things. We don't want anybody hurting themselves. So again, this is really for educational purposes. This is not intended to treat, diagnose, or any of those things. You know, you do want to be in touch with your doctor if you're going to be doing any of this. I would never recommend coming off of any prescription medications unless you're working with your team, right? So when I work with people, I work with a team. If people are already on medications, I have to work with the staff. I'm not an MD. I am a naturopathic practitioner. I have my doctorate in is in herbal medicine. Yes, Sarah, hi, I see you. Wonderful. So please feel free to email me with any questions and we can do that. Not here. I can get more specific with you guys. Just want to get through. Olena, turmeric, noni, we went through. Yes, so I want to leave you with one of my stories and then we'll go, and remind me next time. I will talk to you about more of my Hawaiian stories and more of my legends, more of my experience. Seems everybody's very interested in Hawaiian information, and so I will go into that more. But I have a lot of stories. So living in the rainforest, I became very in tune with everything there. So I lived in the Ola'a forest, which is a very sacred place. Ola'a are an endemic species of trees. They're actually the Ola'a forest. Ohia. Ohia is the tree that grows in the Ola'a forest. So the Ohia lehua, is a very sacred tree. So the trees that I lived in were about 5,000 years old. It was a virgin forest. So it may have been covered by lava at one time. The Ohia is the first tree that grows after the lava. So when the lava actually makes new land, then the ferns come, then the Ohia come. The Ohia have a little red flower on them, or yellow, and that's lehua. So you can see lehua honey if you look online and you want to try Hawaiian honey. Sometimes it's macnut, you know, so the bees go to the different flowers. So when you have different types of honey, the honey that you're getting is, so sometimes you get wildflower honey, right? So the different pollens from the different trees make different honeys, and they all have a very different and unique taste. So the lehua flowers are beautiful flowers that are on the Ohia tree. Oh, there's so many legends. So I want to share with you. There is a Hawaiian legend about the Ohia lehua, and I will share it today. I wanted to share with you. I put it down. I wrote it all down. My plant medicine. I mean, my fish medicine story with Kehau, and my story when I was hunting up on the mountaintop for sheep, and the io, which is the hawk that came, the white hawk. And the other story, a surf story about the honu, which is the turtles. But today, I guess I will stop with the Ohia lehua, and I think that's good because I think we just had the Merry Monarch Festival. So Merry Monarch is an ongoing festival for hula. So again, last week I had so many ideas and my mind wasn't in Hawaii. My mind was more on Western medicine, so I have to shift gears when I speak, you know, Hawaiian, because it's like more legends when I'm speaking about Hawaii and Hawaiian legends. And so Merry Monarch is the hula festival, and the Kohiko is the traditional Hawaiian hula that Queen Nadia was speaking of, which is a lot of chanting. So we do a lot of chants, although I did not dance hula. I danced awana, I danced Tahitian. But then I did work with the kahuna and in volcano, and was more of, you know, a la'au lomi practitioner. but I do have my experience with dance. However, Merry Monarch is a big hula festival. And so during the hula festival on the big island, one of the things that they collect is the flowers to make the leis and the hakus, which is the flowers that they wear in their heads, and the flower leis. And so they will collect the lehua flowers. And although they haven't for a few years now, because the ohia are sick right now. They have a fungus. I have my theories about this. There's a lot of nematodes in the soil. This is why I believe in permaculture. Soil microbes are very important, very, very, very important for the health of the plants. The whole biosphere, the whole ecosystem. This is why when we are concentrating things and we are pulling these plants and we are trying to find active ingredients, this is why this is not working, because it's a whole system and we can't take it outside of this system. We have to understand that everything has a place, and within that place, the healing and the medicine is found within that unique biosphere, and everything or biome, right? And everything is so interdependent on everything else. So even the microbes in the soil have a great impact on these giant 5,000-year-old trees. The nematodes really came to Hawaii from people using herbicides. It destroyed these microbes that keep this balance. The same way that in our gut, we keep this balance of these microbes, which keep our system healthy, right? Because I talked about staph and strep, right? We all have staph and strep. It's okay. We all have it in our system. It's when the, quote, the bad bacteria start to colonize because our systems get weakened that we get sick with staph and strep. However, we are exposed to microbes all the time. And I want to go on this tangent quickly because I do have a meeting coming up. Ohia Lehua. And I don't know if I'm going to do this legend justice. I'm deep in the recesses of my memory. However, during Merry Monarch, it always rains. Almost every year, they say it rains because people will pick the lehua flower for the lei. So all stories, all of the plants and the animals have stories of how they came into being through the Hawaiian cosmology, which is a whole other topic for a whole other day. However, the ohia are these beautiful trees. If you go to my YouTube, I do have one video from many, many years ago where I'm on my land and I have a big, beautiful ohia tree behind me. And I love that tree, and I'll cry if I think about that tree. So I'm not going to think about that tree. Who is very connected to those trees. And so ohia and lehua were two young lovers, human lovers. Now Pele is a very powerful fire goddess, and she's very greedy about men, and she loves men. And so if she sees a man that she loves, she's been known to steal men. So ohia and lehua were two young lovers, and Pele really had a thing for ohia. And ohia rejected her, and she was so angry, you know, this angry fire goddess. She has a soft side, you know, she is the mother too. She does give birth. So she's a lot like Kali in that way. And she was so jealous of this love, this beautiful love affair that she could not have ohia. No one could have ohia. So she turned him into a tree. And Lehua was so beside herself with grief. Such a pretty story. It makes me cry. The gods took pity on her and turned her into this flower blossom. So whenever they're separated, it rains. She cries. I'm crying. So the Hawaiians have beautiful stories like that. So Lehua, ohia. And now if you ever see the tree and you see the flowers, you will think of these lovers and how they cannot be separated, or the sky will cry. So that is the story I'll leave you with, and I hope that you learned a lot today, and I will try to bring pictures for you next time so I can share them. These beautiful plants and trees and this island that's so full of magic. So, aloha. I wish you all well. Feel free to email me with questions. I hope that I was helpful. I hope that you learned a lot, and I look forward to seeing you again. Be blessed and have a wonderful week.
Thank you, sister. It was really amazing, amazing, amazing. Really, we learned a lot from you, and hoping to see you next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you.